Welcome to another That's What They Said, a podcast where we question the questionable lyrics of your favorite songs. Sarina&Scott, Spinelli waving at you. And we're talking Hard to Handle. Original by Otis Redding.
Yes,
ma'am. And the Black Crowes covered the song on their 1990 debut album, Shake Your Money Maker. It would become their greatest hit. Single.
Yeah, I think as I'm sure your research revealed, it appears as if it was bigger than Otis Redding's version of it.
Just like very close, yeah. But it's also like the song was so popular that another artist, Patty Drew, also covered the song back in 1969. But we are going to focus on Otis Redding and Black Crowes today, because imagine, Scott, like someone else's song just became your biggest success story.
Well, okay, so this is, again, I know I'm known for my my wonderful hot takes here.
Yeah, right? Let's go.
I've had this take, I think I talked about it with Aaliyah, right? About how, sometimes when someone passes away, we have like a elevated view of them. And I think Otis Redding is a little, and I realize people are going to.
Our credibility is gone. And
okay, so I've listened to Otis Blue. Have you listened to Otis Blue, that album?
Uh-huh.
It's almost all covers. All right. And I would argue Frank Sinatra is a little bit overrated in that way. Just that, I'm not saying they're not great singers. I'm not saying they don't have soul. But like, to me, someone like Donny Hathaway is better than Otis Redding.
Okay.
And I think Donny Hathaway doesn't get nearly the credit he deserves. I think people who know. I just think that Otis Redding, because Donny Hathaway died tragically as well, but it wasn't I believe Donny Hathaway was suicide, whereas Otis Redding, if I'm not mistaken, was, I know Otis Redding was a plane crash. And so if you look at some of Otis Redding's like catalog, it's a lot of covers.
So maybe this was like, well, it bit you in the butt.
Just the idea of, and to be clear, when I say overrated, we'll use a baseball analogy, right? Okay, when you say that someone is, let's use Mike Mussina. If you say Mike Mussina is overrated, that doesn't mean that you don't think Mike Mussina is one of the best pitchers of all time. That means that you maybe don't think he's one of the, 40 best pitchers of all time. He might be 41. I'm making up numbers here, but you get my point. I just think that overrated doesn't mean you are bad. It just means that sometimes you might be rated a little bit higher than you actually are while still being elite.
Moose.
Fair, unfair? Where do we land on any of this?
I understand that. Yeah. In context, yes. Although when you just say the statement, I think Otis Redding is overrated. I mean,
a little overrated.
Down the stairs. A little.
I'm looking up
Donny Hathaway. That softens the word overrated.
I'm looking up Donny Hathaway, by the way. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, we'll keep going. I just want to make sure I got his death correct.
I know. I was like, oh, suicide. You might want to check that one real quick while
I'm looking it up right now. Go ahead.
Move on. So as we talk about Otis Redding, and I'm including the Black Crowes in this because, Scott, it occurred to me that I did not put the two songs together. I thought they were completely different songs, even though they're the same. Oh, Lord, which is embarrassing, but also shows how different the Black Crowes cover was to the original, in my opinion.
By the way, just a quick aside here. He had jumped from I believe the 15th, his 15th floor apartment in New York City.
Okay, confirmed. Thank you.
But on to happier subjects. Let's go back to Otis Redding. Yeah. Yikes.
I never put the two together. And when we texted about the song, you're like, oh, the Otis Redding original one. And I was like, oh, stand by. I had no idea. Which is funny because I listened to a lot of Otis Redding and I listened to the song and never put the two together. My mom was a big rock. She's still a big rock fan. So Black Crowes and this song was on a lot, when we did our chores on the weekend.
See, for me, it's the opposite. So no one in my family really listened to rock, right? And so I didn't, I actually, frankly, I don't think I'd ever even heard of the Black Crowes, which is probably embarrassing. I'm sure it is embarrassing. But I knew that song. Like we had talked about this maybe whenever it was we had discussed this song. You were like, no, you know this song. Mm-hmm. And I was like, do I? And then you're like, just get to the chorus. You'll 100% know. And then I did, but I did not know that. I learned a lot of this as you were learning it too, to be perfectly frank. And I just want to clarify to all 8 listeners. I don't think Otis Redding isn't great. I think he's great. Okay. I'm just saying, I think that there's I just think that when people die tragically, sometimes we have different evaluations of their career than if it had played out naturally. That's
Shout
all.
out to ODB. Shout out to Old Dirty Bastard
Yeah.
in previous episode.
Can I give a Denver Nug before we get into the song?
Please.
So did you know that I would argue, okay, I'll put it to you first. What do you think Otis Redding's most popular song is? Like if you asked someone on the street that knew who he was and they said, what song do you think of when you think of Otis Redding? What is your answer?
A lot of them.
My answer to that is Sitting on the Dock of the Bay.
Okay, I was thinking that one, then I was kind of like going back and forth. Okay, go ahead.
No, again, that part's not the trivia. The trivia is, did you know that song, which was recorded very shortly before, one of the recordings was done obviously right before he passed.
Mhm.
That was the first posthumous #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. How about that? Huh?
Wow. Way to go.
Yeah, that's a nice little nug for you, though.
That's a good nug.
For those of you just tuning into the podcast now, we are not doing Sitting on the Dock of the Bay.
We're not.
But that's a nugget for you.
Oh, that's great. Good nug.
First posthumous #1 ever.
Wow. Holy cow. When we criticize #1s, but that one I would not argue. So that's good that
Great track.
solidified a #1. It's funny because my only Denver nug to this, and again, to clarify, I will go back and forth a little bit between the two artists because I knew this song more from Black Crowes versus Otis Redding, who did the original song. But it was in a Spin magazine article that the Black Crowes wrote. We had an opportunity to expose kids to Otis and this amazing song and put music out in the world. But it's so different that I had no idea. I'm like, well, I was a kid growing up in the 90s, and I'll tell you, 90s rock, very hard to understand in general. The reason I added this song to the list was because I had a very difficult time listening to the words of this song, which
well, that was my question. Do you want to just start with the obvious, or I mean, I have a couple other lyrics other than
hey, little thing, that part. Yeah, we can go.
Do you want to start there, or do you want to just, because I have a couple other things, but if you wanted to start there, we can. You tell me.
To confirm, Otis Redding's version reached 51 on the billboards, and Counting Crows hit 45 on the 100.
So just a little bit better, yeah.
Yeah, it's just fascinating. But yes, we can get to lyrics now.
I know. Well, did you want to? What I was asking is, do you want to start with that chorus, or I had one more lyric? I had two lyrics outside of the chorus.
Let's go to the obvious because it seems like that's
sure.
Everyone's like, just get to it, and then they'll stop listening, and we'll save each other a lot of problems. Yeah. It's fine. Go for it.
So obviously the chorus, right? It's what everyone knows.
Hey, little thing, let me light your candle. Because Mama, I'm sure hard to handle now, gets around.
Oh, wait, hold on. In the Black Crowes version, it's gets around?
Yes.
Okay, so in the Otis Redding version, it's pretty little thing, let me light your candle, because Mama, I'm sure hard to handle now. Yes, I am.
Yes.
So now, okay, I think the most fun way to do this is, what did you think the actual words were? Because I never knew what the words were until I read this just, today. But I always thought, and I never quite pieced it together, like you were doing like a gibberish version of it. That's what it was in my head. But the only things I could make out were, pretty little thing, let me light your can of corn. I thought it was, let me light your can of corn.
Yes. I heard pretty little thing, even though it's hey little thing.
Yeah.
And then I lost all senses.
Well, that's just, again, the Otis Redding I think is pretty.
Yeah, okay. Hey little thing, hey pretty thing. So that's,
how do they make that distinction? Like, I wonder when they're sitting there like, yeah, we are covering his song, but we really got to make it our own.
Little. Yeah.
Let's ditch the pretty. Let's ditch pretty. So stupid. Yeah. It's so close. Just use the exact same words. What's the difference?
Yeah. Right. If you were going to change something to be like, hey, Baba Bing, you know what I mean? Like something a little, you'd be like, whoa, but no, it's just.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, you're changing an irrelevant portion of the song when every other piece of it is exactly the same. But yeah, I had, like I said, my thought was it was something about lighting a can of corn on fire. Even though intellectually at the time I knew that wasn't right, But I again, this isn't my exact wheelhouse of music, so I never pressed further as to why Yeah, that might be the case, but yeah, that was what I thought it was. Did you have anything specific other than
I gibbered my life through this song, like all through the 90s, 2000s. Like I'm in 2023, and I
Gibbered?
just went and looked it up because I was like, I should probably know what this means by now, especially if we're gonna do it on the podcast. But hey, little thing, let me light your candle, because mama, I'm sure hard to handle. Holy cow. If you listen, like Scott, you can like bet it in there. But who would know? Who would ever know?
I don't think I almost don't
They
even know if you're I almost don't think that like you're intended to know. You know what I mean? Like it's almost one of
The
those things
Black Crowes definitely were like, let's shake this one up.
see how fast we can record this and
Yes.
see how many people we can fool. Because also, I would imagine too, back when this came out in either order, obviously, for either song, I should say, when it came out, clearly the only way you could find out was by liner notes if they had the lyrics in the notes. But like, there must have been some cultural currency to being a Black Crowes fan who actually understood the lyrics. Like that must have been valuable amongst that group if you actually understood it, as opposed to like being a doofus who was like, it's like the same guy
Right.
who does the subway announcements. Next stop.
Yes.
Like that was that
You
guy
gotta feel
who's doing this. Yeah.
to know that.
Yeah.
He said he's gonna take a 15-minute break at 161st Street. Like
Yeah.
it's Joey up front. I know, it's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's him. Yep, it's him.
Yeah, but I like that's what I said off the top. Like I had a hard time understanding 90s rock lyrics in general. I don't know if that's why my mom
Well, who
liked
did you, by the way, just as a quick aside, what kind of rock groups did your mom like?
she's still a fan of the Foo Fighters. Like
Oh, okay, cool.
Dave Grohl is like the best artist ever, which
Yeah, I
he's
mean,
pretty
he's
freaking
pretty
cool.
talented. Yeah,
I
right.
don't think
Yeah.
anyone doesn't like Dave Grohl. There's
No,
like,
I'm not, by the way, no, zero
oh
judgment here
yeah,
whatsoever. Yeah, yeah. I have no
she,
state. Was
she
she into
took me
like
to
Nirvana and everything, or was it more just like
she took me to a Red Hot Chili Peppers concert when I was young. Yeah, she dabbled like and then it was like pop pop rock too.
That's who you're
Spin
thinking of.
Doctors. Okay. Yeah, she bought my sister the Spin Doctors album. So it was a lot of just and then it was funny because my dad listened to the Beach Boys and like Hector Lavoe, like it was like
You got
old
yeah,
Latino and
quite the mix in your
Bachman Turner Overdrive. I think I was the only 8-year-old kid that knew that band in the Bronx growing up.
you had a very interesting musical mix in your home.
Yes. That's why I
I,
like music. Like
I
someone's got to listen to me.
I don't know. I mean, it was for me. It was Wu-Tang with my brother and Mobb Deep. He liked that. My dad, I remember liking Dennis DeYoung of Styx, and my mom was into like Stevie Wonder,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
kind of stuff. Yeah, yeah. But
There was a lot
I
of
didn't-
stuff in our house.
yeah, no. I mean, what's not to love?
Yeah.
I have another lyric for you.
Okay.
It's right at the beginning where Otis says, "I can give you what you want, but you've got to go home with me." And I was like,
I wrote
that
down the same lyric. Woo, boy.
a touch aggressive.
And
Like,
that's the first like line, like first
yes,
line. It's like, whoa, buddy, you were feeling confident that morning.
yes. It's a little aggressive and frankly borderline creepy. Not even borderline,
Yeah,
like
you gotta come home with me though. If you want this, there's a line drawn, and this one you're gonna have to step over and into my door.
there's one option for you. Should you want this, you have to come to my domicile. That's
Yeah,
the end. Yeah.
no, and like again, the Otis Redding version, it versus the Spin Doctor or the Spin Doctors. Now I can remember them. The Black Crowes version.
Sure.
I find that like Otis Redding, you like, and I read this in an article too. Like you're rooting for Otis to take the girl home, and the Spin Doctors, you're like, I don't know, I'm just enjoying this, fun little rock tune that you guys put together. But Otis has such confidence, and it was very different from like some of his other songs that you were like, way to go, buddy. Like if someone's gonna do that, more power to you.
Why not you? Yeah.
Like at least you're straight up and you tell them, you know what I mean? Like
As our listeners will see next week, it's a touch more aggressive with the way
Fat Joe.
handles requesting a woman's attention.
There's been a progression in how we use lyrics over time. And I don't know if it's a progression, but
I feel like a progression.
no.
It's just a violent jump. I have another lyric unless I've taken the last couple, so if you had one, feel free.
Oh, yeah, no, it's right after that line. But you gotta come home with me. I've got some good old lovin', and I've got some more in store. When I go through throwing it on you, you gotta come back for more. Like,
Do I though?
if I'm Otis here, and I don't know if he was using a typewriter back then or a computer, or if he was just right.
I don't think he was using a computer. I would imagine this was written in the mid-60s. Yeah. He famously died in the late 60s, so I don't think he used a computer to write this, but yeah.
No. I'm over here like making computer keyboard motions with my hand. I'm like, he didn't even use that. That technology didn't exist. But the guy is, whatever he did that morning, like, I don't know if he was able to like do a backflip or something.
Yeah.
The confidence is just oozing out of this man. Like, I know what I got, and I got more in store. You're gonna come back for this. Trust.
It's the exact opposite with me. Every woman I've ever slept with, I go, you probably have you've seen the best. It's
I apologize.
I'm sorry, and I would imagine it's in your best interest to not come back, because it will only get progressively worse from here.
Yeah.
Best of luck.
Yeah, no. So again, that impressed me. And then boys and things that come by the dozen, that ain't nothing but drugstore lovin'. Like, was that Viagra back then? Did they have that in the 60s? I'm very
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know when that came on the market. I don't want to search for it though, because I feel like that'll be the end of my search history.
Same, I don't want
Yeah, I'm gonna just take your word. Let's just leave it to the ether. Who knows? Put it out there.
Google search that for us so you can ruin your
Who's to say? My
Jonathan's gonna be like, why did you look this up?
Exactly. Anything you want to tell me? Yeah. The lyric I had, my last lyric was, I'm advertising love for free, so won't you place your ad with me? And I thought, I'm not sure if Otis Redding understands how advertising works. Yeah. I was like, I don't think you get it, because you don't get to determine who else places ads somewhere else. That's not how advertising works. Otherwise, you would own the publication. So we need to have an ad sales conversation with Otis and his team. You know what it is?
Confidence, just didn't understand the advertising market.
I will draw an analogy to one I'm sure that's never been made between Ab-Soul, the rapper, and Otis Redding. But hear me out here. Sometimes there are lyrics that just sound cool, but when you think about them, they don't actually make any sense. So like, I'm advertising love for free, so won't you place your ad with me? If you don't think about it at all, sounds cool.
Right.
But then you think about it for a millisecond, and you're like, that doesn't make any actual sense. Yeah. And the analogy is on Ab-Soul's newest album called Herbert, which I would recommend. There's a song on there, I think it's called The Art of Seduction, but he has a lyric where he goes, will the honey stay when the money goes? I don't know, ask Winnie the Pooh. And when you hear it, the way he rhymes poo with something else, I think the way he says goes sounds like whatever. It kind of rhymes, but then when you hear it initially, you're like, oh, clever. And then you think about it for 1 second, you're like, that makes no sense. Makes no sense. There's a lot of lyrics like that where you're like
they are related, but they are not logical. These are just
that is exactly right. Yes.
Like a Venn diagram, and it's just, but these two things really didn't, that makes no sense.
Exactly. Yep.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, the only other line I had was actions speak louder than words, and I'm a man of great experience. Again, you could take that two ways, like, wow, you've gotten around a lot, like tested. I don't know. I'm worried about you. I know you got another man, but I can love you better than him. Holy cow, Otis. What in the world?
But hold on, to go back to the experience thing, I don't know many women who are, maybe I'm wrong here. I mean, as the one woman out of the two of us, I would say perhaps you could speak to this better than I could, but I wouldn't think a good way to get a woman impressed by you is say, you know how many times I've had intercourse and with different women? Like, I don't think many women
have no idea the number of women I have hooked up with.
Truly.
I don't want to brag. I would be like, see ya. Like,
yeah, I mean, truly staggering the numbers I put on the board.
Right. I'm going to put this in a permanent lyric that will be covered and replayed twice. Not even, yeah, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, not exactly like very to me it's one of those things where it's like, oh, this is apparent that a man wrote this. Like
Yes,
yeah,
yeah. Like I was thinking like the most interesting man in the world, but the most interesting man in the world doesn't go and like brag about, like, you might assume like, oh, he's probably been with these like very exotic, cultured women all over the world. You might, but you could also be like, wow, classy man, selective. No, this man is like, I'm coming with a lot of experience, and
it's
you know
all out there.
exactly the experience that I am talking about.
There's the B side of this was where he does a DMX version where he literally has a verse where he lists every woman he's ever slept with. So
They're all gender neutral names.
yes, exactly.
Oh man. Yeah. I mean, Otis, way to go hard and go home, literally and figuratively speaking.
Yes. Rest in peace. He is an all-timer. Just, you know what I'm saying? Just listen to what I said and be fair about it, and then, hate me for it, opinion-wise. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
Do you like, and this is unfair, but I'm gonna friggin' ask it. Curious if people really liked the Black Crowes version or the Otis Redding, because I find them to be so different.
I think I like them both. Yeah, I like them
Yeah.
both separately. Yeah, I don't think.
I had no idea that it was a freaking cover, and I've heard both songs before.
No, I like them both, and I think that they satisfy different. I'm trying to think of like a comparable example here, but there's like John Mayer covers Free Falling, the Tom Petty song. Yeah, and I think that or even more like it's not as famous as these two, but John Mayer also with the John Mayer Trio does a cover of I Got a Woman, the Ray Charles song. And the Ray Charles song is really good, right? Obviously on its own. And then he does a rock and roll cover that's also awesome. So I just think it's, I think that's what makes a great cover. You're putting your spin on it to make it your own song as opposed to just singing it again in a different voice.
Yeah, that's fair.
They're using most of the same words, but they're not, I think they're different enough, frankly.
They changed pretty to little.
I mean,
thank goodness.
Completely different song at this point. Yeah.
They wouldn't even put it together, which is factual. Do you have any final thoughts on either one? Oh,
no, I do not. Actually, yeah.
Do you watch the video for Black Crowes? Again, I tried to look into like who these black men were in the background, because they're a rock band. There's like these random, like there's like a hip hop guy in the back in the music video.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm like, what were you doing? Unless they're part of the band, and I tried to look into it. No one really
I watched the lyric video that I think Otis Redding's estate made for that one. That was what I saw as far as videos were concerned. I didn't catch the Black Crowes video, unfortunately.
Oh, well, I mean, if you have the time or day, I would do it.
Let me check my watch. I will get to it. I'm going to get to it shortly after we're done taping. Right.
Otis died in December of 1967 before the song was actually released. So he died and then watched the song be famous again. So
yeah.
Maybe he's the one who was just like sprinkling it down, guys.
Puppet Master. Yeah. The hard to handle Puppet Master.
It's all his fault.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that wraps up another episode of That's What They Said. If you enjoy the podcast, please leave a review and make sure you check us out on YouTube as well as Spotify and iTunes. Until then, we'll catch you on another time.